Hello everyone, and welcome back to this week's episode of Dance Direct Support Network. I'm Marielle, and I'm here with my ballet teacher, Miss Brikke. Hello.
Hi. Thanks for having me.
Of course. So before we get started on the questions, if you just want to give a short bio about who you are, what your dance background is like, and your favorite thing about dance.
All right. So, I started dancing when I was 5 years old. At the time, I was living in Canada. My sister was dancing, and I wanted to do exactly the same. And then I continued. I lived in many different countries, so I would have danced in different countries. But then I told my parents I really wanted to be, a ballerina dancer. So I went to ballet boarding school. I was 12 years old. It was fantastic for dance. It was absolutely horrific on a human level. The jealousy, it was just horrible. So then I left because my parents went to live far away in Australia, and that was the best time because the atmosphere there was fantastic. And then I came back to that ballet boarding school for different reasons in the south of France, and it was a little bit better, but I had that moment that a lot of 14, 15-year-olds have, like, right. Do I want to do this? Do I not want to do this? The body is changing. But I did continue, and then I continued then in London. I had a moment where I kind of stopped a little bit because I wasn't quite sure. I went to college and worked and danced at the same time, and then it was like, oh no, I have to go back to dance. So it's really a very eclectic background, and as a dancer, at least for training.
Like you said, you had various times where you were contemplating, is this for me? Do I want to become a professional dancer? What kept you going? What motivated you to want to pursue a dance career professionally and not give up despite your challenges that you faced?
I think it was just how I felt when I was dancing, how I felt when I was in the dance studio, and the support I was getting from the teachers as well. That was really a big deal. I was always interested in many different things, and that's why it was kind of, should I do this? Should I not do this? So that was always, when I committed to dance, it was, but that means I'm not going to be doing theater.
Right.
That means so I got to dabble a little bit in this later on. The feeling that I had when I was dancing, I really enjoyed it. It was something to the music. It was special. When I was about 14, 15, the modern I had was Graham, which was fine, but the Graham teacher I had was a gentleman who would sweat a lot. And it was so stinky in the room because in Europe they don't necessarily wear deodorant, that I associated Graham with
odor
bench, and we had to put these pink overalls that at 14, 15, when your body is changing, you do not want to be in that, pink. So I think I associated all of that.
Something that has always stuck with you that you like to bring into the classroom now?
I think there are a few people who just had a human side that was just so wonderful. They were warm, they were friendly. And for me, this was something that was really important because I grew up in going sometimes to dance classes where it was dance and very critical and quite mean, actually. The comments from the teachers were not overly supportive. So the teachers who had this kind of very humanistic approach, very wholesome approach, I found that to be amazing. I thought, you can be a dancer and you can be kind too, or you can be a dancer, right, and you can do something without being, yelled at. Because I think now in the United States it's a lot tamer than it used to be, but in Europe or in other areas where ballet is prevalent, it's not always very kind. The comments can be quite hurtful,
degrading,
and quite degrading. Yeah. It can be very toxic, and I have been in situations where it was very toxic, to the point where it was almost like you don't to run the other way, and you don't want to dance, and because it's so bad, or the judgment is so strong. Also, it depends on how sensitive you are.
Right.
So being able to build a little bit of a guardrail around you, and to just kind of focus on what it is that you have to do. It's hard.
What advice would you give to an aspiring dancer at LaGuardia and also outside of LaGuardia?
Well, I think first thing, and it's easy to say, it's harder to do, but don't stress. I think the stress comes in and then the fear comes in, and sometimes because of stress and because of fear, we end up not doing what we should be doing, or we're not giving 100% of ourselves, or it kind of stifles our effort. Stay focused and dedicated to what it is that you have to do. Give yourself enough time to sleep, enough time to eat well, enough time to be a young person, and to have a, family time, social time, but stay very focused. And then when there is the noise coming here and there of either personal judgment, your own self-judgment, or the judgment from other people, not to get too caught up. This should be considered as noise, like outdoor noise.
Right.
There's not much you can do about it, but what you can do is how you receive it. For me, it affected me tremendously because I was in a boarding school. I didn't have my family to talk to at night and say, this is what happened, and have them kind of guide me through strategies. I was completely on my own at a very young age, 12, 13, 14 years old.
No phones.
And no phones, no FaceTime, no WhatsApp, and all of that. That's very true. Perfectionism is a tricky one because you need to be a perfectionist as an artist, but sometimes it can work against you.
Right.
So it's great to look for what
Improving
the best
yourself,
that you can do, but there's Margot Fontaine, who was a major ballerina with the Royal Ballet, and she partnered with Rudolf Nureyev for 20 years. She said, always take your art seriously, but don't take yourself seriously.
Right.
And that means, really work hard, but don't think that you need to be, someone else or something else, or above others, or rather be too affected by the surrounding. Just kind of focus.
In terms of your experience performing, or just like what you've witnessed, what is what is a fail or a malfunction that you think about when you're talking about dance being a little less serious, or something that comes to mind when you think about fails that you've experienced?
Well, one was dancing in the Nutcracker. I believe it was in the snow scene. There were many of us on stage, and suddenly I feel on my ankle something loose, and my shoelace came off. I think it was my left foot, and they were, moving around here. And usually, what you do is you sew them. And but I was in a piece that required that I be bare feet just afterwards, so I didn't want to sew because then I had to. So I had kind of put the hairspray, the usual thing.
Yes.
But it
the ribbon?
The ribbon,
when
yeah. Sorry, it's ribbon. I say shoelace because of the French equivalent. The ribbon fell out. I had to get off stage because there was no way that I was going to do a series of jumps and piqués and all of that on this. So I exit the stage, and the choreographer was just there. So I put it back, and I was trying to look at, when do I go back in? Do I go back in? And she was right behind me, and without telling me, she just pushed me right in. And I don't know what that must have looked like. She pushed me in at the time that she thought was the appropriate time, and I had to react to it, and I had to whoa, okay. And I had to make my way to my spot and find my spot and continue. And when things like that happen, your heart races, you feel terrible, you feel, my God,
adrenaline already from the stage.
And then you have to make very quick choices, and you have to say, where do I go next? What do I do? And you're not quite sure whether you made the right choice or not.
That's scary.
That was very scary. I still remember the feeling, the physical feeling of, you feel the ribbons are nice and tight on one ankle, and suddenly you feel like there's something wrong with this ankle.
And then you look down and you're like, oh God.
Yes.
And the snow is probably falling too.
Yes. We have those little pieces of paper that are dropping there. And then you're in a formation, so that you feel terrible because I had to decide at what point am I going to leave that formation. And I thought the closer I am to the wing is the best way to do it. But when she pushed me in, yama, where do I go? What do I do? I didn't have time to think. If I wish she hadn't done that. I wish she had just whispered in my ear instead, because then I would have been able to say, okay.
So she actually went like that?
She actually pushed me. She actually pushed me. I don't know if it was out of, you know, she was
Panic
mad,
too, or
panicked too. We never talked about it afterwards.
that's also
Funny enough.
strange. I feel like
I think she was a very seasoned ballerina
right.
herself in her time. I think she knew that, you know, things happen. You bet that I had my sewing stuff.
Oh my
and
God,
then
I'm
I
sure
would
after
have,
that you were like
after
double,
that,
triple checking it.
oh my goodness, I am like sewing this and sewing back.
One last question to wrap up. What do you hope for the students who you see coming from freshman to senior year and then onwards?
I hope that they believe in themselves enough to continue and not to be, discouraged by, as I said earlier, the noise or people who say really, or people who don't believe, or people that they feel maybe they went to an audition and it didn't work out. Just keep going, just keep going, just keep going. If that's what your heart is telling you to do, just do it. Because
right.
when you actually survey people who have been very successful, the majority of them will say to you, there was no other way that I was going to do something else. This is what I was going to do. And they were very dedicated. Some were very lucky, some are very lucky that just by the time they graduate, boom, they get into a company.
Right.
But it's not everybody.
But you have to have persistence, even
you're,
if that is you.
yeah, sometimes you have to take time. Sometimes it may take 4 years, may take 5 years or 3. Nobody has the same path, but if you want that path to really stay with it, work hard, stay with it. And I hope that that's what they learn through the 4 years.
Yeah. So,
yeah.
I think that's a great place to wrap things up.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Brikke, for coming.
Great questions.
Thank you.
Excellent.
And thank you guys so much for watching this episode. So stay tuned to some more interviews and some more content. Hope to see you back again soon. Bye.
Bye-bye. Have a